children, the little children, because she was very much a public figure. Although she was very much a public figure, she was also the life and heart of our family, our immediate family, and our extended family. She loved her family intensely, and she was no sacrifices too much for her. She would cook fantastic meals and find any excuse, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Hari Raya, whatever, to bring the family together around a table of beautiful, well-cooked meals. And the brother-in-law, Dr. Bhaskaran, who was a critic of and a connoisseur of food, would attest to the fact that she always passed with flying colors. Her love for her family, however, did not mean that she insulated and isolated it from the needs and concerns of the community at large. For her, the family was simply a place which provided a safe, supportive environment to which, after a hard day's struggle, she could bring the tears, the hopes, and the joys of the larger community to share, to pray over, to analyze, to strategize, and to be invigorated for further action. Most people would say she was an iron lady. It is true, she was an iron lady when she was facing the instruments of oppression and injustice, or when she was dealing with people who used their power and position at the expense of other people. But inside, she had a very soft and sensitive heart. And I must confess, there are numerous occasions that could reduce her to a pile of tears, just a simple few ill-advised words. Sorry, Irene, I'm sure you forgive me for that. Most of you know about the public trial that she went through, and you call her a woman of courage and all that kind of thing. But we as a family were privileged to share with her the loneliness of a marathon runner, so to speak. We shared with her the pain, the frustration of a senseless, practically a useless marathon trial which stretched over 13 years, where the state threw and wasted enormous amount of resources for something which was completely useless, unnecessary. And she was acquitted. Well, not exactly, she wasn't acquitted. It was one of the few times, or maybe the only time, when the Attorney General, after all these years and wasted the public funds, decided to throw in the towel and decided not to appeal, not to fight the appeal that she had put forward. She went to court and the Attorney General said, look, I think I don't want to continue with this. It was a time of, well, she was not entirely happy with the outcome, to be very honest. She was relieved. But to her, the trial was not about herself. It was a trial about the system that sucked and drew the blood and lives of migrants in our midst. And that system still prevails. And she would not be happy until that system of oppression still continues. Now, Irene was also, perhaps contrary to public perception, a deeply religious person. She had complete faith in God. On the day she was hospitalized, she was as usual driving or being driven, going to work. And as usual, she had finished saying the rosary, which normally, because it was an hour's drive or so to work. And soon after getting into the car, she would say a rosary. And after finishing the rosary, that's when she had breathing difficulties and collapsed. Her faith was not, however, a source, or she did not treat her faith as a source of opium which lulled her, or lulled us into complacency and inaction. It is a faith that sensitized her and impelled her to action, to do what was necessary to bring about peace and justice. She had a healthy disdain for power, positions, people in authority who were oppressive and exploitative. She didn't care very much for laws, human laws, and sometimes even human laws that masqueraded as religious laws. If the purpose of that law, if those laws were being used as instruments of oppression. She also had her battles, not with respect to the church, but she also had her battles in the church, which she fought with equal vigor. But it's a battle that was even more painful because she was fighting what she loved. She only fought that because so that she could be proud of the Christian faith, whose only supreme law was the law of love. Well, now I'd like to share with you the last few minutes or the last few moments on a deathbed. No, I don't call it a deathbed. It was as she was preparing herself to move on to the next phase of her life. We read to her the beautiful prayer that it's not Sote, but whatever, Bishop, Archbishop, or Holiness, or whatever. Okay, but to her she was Sote, okay, I'm sorry. And had very lovingly prepared for her and read out and had given it, communicated to her over the phone, and they told her to read to her, and she read it to her. And we joined him in that prayer, and we told her, look, Irene, please rest in peace. You're resting in the peace of God. All right? Of course, we want you back here. As a family, we want you back. Because but we were afraid that she would say, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. There are miles to go and promises to keep before I go to sleep. But we told her, look, there are people who have willingly taken on the fight. So if you come back to us, it's great. If not, just rest. God knows what is best, and He will do what is best. I was happy that we could all say that prayer, told her that because we were able to accept whatever God offered us. So there was no rancor, anger. Of course, there were moments of grief, but it was a good send-off, right? And when the doctor said, we can't do anymore, we gave him a hug and said, thank you, you did your best. And just one last thing, maybe some of you have told many of you, she finally left us on 31st of March. And as Bishop Sebastian would remember, 35 years ago on that day, he was instrumental in joining Irene and I as man and wife. It was our 35th wedding, 35th wedding anniversary. And I think I have a sneaking feeling that she held on to that day because she didn't want me to forget that date. You know, as husbands often do, right? So at that point, I just want to recall the tagline that we had on our wedding brochure. It says, the measure of love is to love without measure. And I think we would like, of course we have not always lived up to it, but we ask your support and your prayers that we continue to live, to love without measure. Okay, just bear with us a couple of minutes.
Many people in recent days have asked us to share our thoughts as her children, to speak about Irene the mother, and not Irene as this immense force and activism that many in the world knew her as. The truth is, Irene the activist and Irene our mother are not identities that can be disentangled from one another. The shapes and the shades of the expression of who she is in these different roles may shift and change, but the spirit shone in colors that came from the same rainbow of love, of truth, of goodness, and her heart, it beat from the same drum of justice and love. When we were little, Mom would carry us up high up above and balance us on top of her head as we squealed in delight and pretended that we were flying. Just like that, Mom has raised above all who were made small by the unkindness in the world, and she let them stand high on her shoulders, so that their voices may be raised and their spirits could fly. She taught us nursery rhymes, complete with actions, and she loved singing with us, even though she was an awful singer, like most of us unfortunately didn't inherit the good genes of singing. But where she lacked in keeping key, she made up by singing in full gusto, replete with hand gestures and fist pumping in the air. But it was only much later, when we were a little older, that we learned that the lyrics, get up, stand up for your rights, don't give up the fight, was not a nursery rhyme, but rather a Bob Marley song. I'm sure my siblings and I have so many memories to share about Mum and how she loved us so deeply and so openly, and how she extended that love to all who, especially those who may not have had a lot of light and love in their world. But I think that a lot has been said, and a lot of us have our own personal reflections, and I'll leave that to it. Words like, I will miss Mum, are so weak, and they cannot fully express what the pain is and the loss as we now learn to live with this Amma-shaped hole in our universe. But we do know that she will continue to occupy the spaces in our heart, and she lives on in our spirit and our souls. A few days ago, a friend from overseas sent a message that read, when I think of Irene, I think of what an overachiever she was, and I think on some nonsensical level I expected her to achieve immortality. I can relate to that. Mom always said, don't tell me to rest. When I rest, if you ask me to retire, that is death. In her death, she is now resting, because she knows that there's many among us here, many who will carry the big, beautiful flag that she carried and the bright, striking torch that she ran the race with. She will, and I'll just finally say this, she always taught us, firstly, you need to be clear about what you want. And secondly, you need to claim the space and you need to use it. And so here in this beautiful congregation of so many people from so many backgrounds, I'll just leave you with a few messages that, out of the many that Mom has taught us. Speak your truth, speak it loudly, love generously, defend that love, be courageous, be bold, never ever modify your life to fit within the contours of oppression. Be brave, be brave, be brave. There is no farewell to you, Mom. You live in our everyday, and there you will stay forevermore. We love you.